Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, for goodness sakes. It is Friday, July 7th, 2018 at 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time, and I wanted to do a live stream of the news. A lot of things are going on. I wanted to talk about some stuff with you guys, and I wanted to go over some of the more pressing things, at least that I feel like are more pressing. Thank you guys for coming to the live stream. Good afternoon, everybody. Um, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, JB's friend. Let me tell you guys. So funny. I know somebody who knows somebody. It was like a mutual sort of a thing. And he's in here in the it's a great screen name you've got there, by the way. Hello, nice to meet you. So I'm going to go over a bunch of stuff here today, but first thing I wanted to talk about, you guys are amazing. The first thing I wanted to talk about is Real Video. You guys will see this on the screen. This is Mike Adams' newest venture. It's kind of like a YouTube alternative, and a very good one at that. As a matter of fact, I was lucky enough to be invited to participate in this beta and be one of the first creators to have a channel. And I did that, and I uploaded a bunch of content yesterday, or this morning, I'm sorry. And here is my channel. There's just like about 10 videos up here so far, but it's ad free, and I believe it's ad free. And you guys will be able to check out all my work here as well. It's always good to diversify. It's always good to support people that are, champions of liberty, free speech, etc. And I'm proud and honored to have been asked to come use the platform in its inception. So I'm excited about that. The links to this are in the description box below. I want to talk about a bunch of different stuff today too. In addition, I want to say that I announced yesterday that I am joining the Your Voice America broadcast family. Thank you, Robert. The Your Voice America broadcast family, which is an honor. Again, I told you guys I've been working on a bunch of stuff in the background, and I am, and there's still more to come. I will have a really awesome show with Tracy Belmonte coming up soon. It was announced this morning by Ann Vanderseel, and they're doing a lot of amazing things over there at YVA. And so I just encourage you to take a look at, keep your eye on Bill Mitchell's Twitter. And I think it's just a great thing for everybody. It's just more people that get the information, and you guys are coming along with me. So that's awesome. So there's two great things today. My podcast was really good because Frank's on it, and Frank's awesome. So you guys have to check that out. Dark to Light. It's on Google Play. It's every Friday at 5:00. It's on iTunes. It's on Stitcher. It's on TuneIn, or you can find it on radioinfluence.com. We are doing things, guys. No matter what happens, we're doing things together. We're winning, as somebody said. We are winning. #winning. Absolutely. So, without further ado, let's get into the news, shall we? Hi, Miss Torres. You guys are awesome. All right, here we go. That's not what I wanted. I want to start with this. We have been having John Solomon, who doesn't come out with a lot of pieces, but comes out with really, really good pieces that are full of information, has been coming out with some awesome, awesome work lately. And they're spread out, but they kind of follow a tangent. They're kind of all connected. The first one he came out with was this one. And this was on May 14th, 2018. And it says, Mueller may have a conflict and it leads directly to a Russian oligarch. Okay. This article here, which I'm not going to read through in its entirety, basically goes through 11. If you guys remember, Oleg Deripaska has been like a central figure in the Spygate thing. He's been sanctioned incessantly by the Trump administration. He is an aluminum magnate who's been sanctioned, like again, personally and professionally. And we learned in this John Solomon piece that he also had ties to Robert Mueller back in the day. We also learned in this Solomon piece that he had ties to Robert Mueller to the FBI for the Russiagate investigation. They approached him to work on their side as sort of like a CI in regards to Manafort. And that's what comes out in this article. Oleg Deripaska worked with Robert Mueller when he was FBI director to helped to rescue Robert Levinson, who was a CIA contractor who went over to, I believe it was Iran, to do a little side mission. I did a bunch of videos on this back in the day. I will put them in the description for you guys. So he Mueller worked with Deripaska. Deripaska used his own money to basically arrange this rescue from for Robert Levinson. And at the very last moment, and you know who can speak to this at great length, and I'm hoping to be able to grab her for an interview very soon, is Robin Gritz, because she was the one who was working on this case. So I'm sorry, not McCabe, Mueller basically, worked with Deripaska to arrange this transport for Robert Levinson, who was also used to be former FBI, so kind of near and dear to the heart. And at the very last second, Hillary Clinton kind of pulled the plug on this. But here's this article from John Solomon talking about the sort of use of CI, confidential informants, etc., in the Crossfire Hurricane or Russiagate investigation. 2 months before Trump was elected president, Deripaska was in New York as part of Russia's United Nations delegation when three FBI agents awakened him in his home. At least one of them had worked with Deripaska on the aborted effort to rescue Levinson. During an hour-long visit, the agents posited a theory that Trump's campaign was secretly colluding with Russia to hijack the U.S. election. Deripaska laughed, but realized, despite the joviality, that there was serious. Now, Deripaska wasn't allowed into the country because of, whatever. They thought he had ties to organized crime, all kinds of stuff. So there was basically like a sweetheart deal made where he could enter the country, conduct his business, and get on with things. And if you talk about who the person is that worked this out and who his attorney, who his lobbyist is, it's Waldman. It's Waldman. You guys know who Waldman is, the one who's texting back and forth with Mark Warner and talking about the Steele dossier and talking about the Steele dossier and talking with Assange to try and broker a deal, blah, 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 right? So the next, and this is good to go over again, and you guys, I suggest you read it again. Maybe I'll do another standalone visit on this, video on this. But the next one that he writes is this one on Comey that we went over in detail in my last video. And this one here has to do with Assange and killing the WikiLeaks immunity deal. Again, Waldman is involved here. This article goes into detail about the communications between Waldman and members of the FBI trying to arrange some sort of a deal for Julian Assange to come over, have Queen for a Day immunity, talk to the FBI, give them information about the CIA vault drops and or negotiate a stop to those drops, because that's what they were really worried about. And Julian Assange wants to say, hey guys, I know who hacked the DNC, and guess what? It wasn't Russia. Well, Comey can't have any of that because that would blow the whole story out of the water. So again, and intervene into this Assange deal. The screen caps are here of all the information. Everything is here for you guys to look at. The text messages, I talked about some anomalies in those text messages in my last video. There are more anomalies in those text messages that you guys should be able to find. Okay, so I would take a look through this article again. Just understand the kind of weave, the fabric weave we're doing here through the articles from John Solomon. The article he came out with today. Now, another thing, he's prefaced these articles. They're typically have been prefaced on like Hannity or some other kind of bigger outlet where he says, I've got something big and bombshell coming. He goes on to talk about it. Whoever he's talking to interrupts him 100,000 times and doesn't let him speak. And then finally he gets to talk about what he talks about. I didn't see him tease this one. I may be wrong. If you guys find him teasing this article anywhere, please let me know. But out it came this morning, and boy, is it a whopper of an article. And on my podcast with Frank, I go over this article. This show is based around this article, but I did a little bit more digging in the interim, and I think it would be beneficial for YouTube to see this also, just in case you guys don't listen to my show, which would be a travesty, but you should listen to the show. But in case you don't, here we are. I am going to read this straight through, but I'm going to stop after each point that I want to make, and I'm going to show you some stuff as well. This article, I don't think that people realize the implications that this article actually has. So let's talk about it. It starts, and note as well, they call him an opinion contributor. He calls himself an opinion contributor. It's very, very interesting to me. Multiple reviews of whether FBI agents' political bias affected the Russia-Trump collusion case remain in their infancy, but investigators already have unearthed troubling internal communications long withheld from public view. Long withheld from public view, why? Long withheld from public view because they weren't provided, long withheld from public view because they're in the midst of the FISA investigation the OIG is doing. Long withheld from public view because they're damaging and nobody wants us to see them. It could be any of those or all of those. We already know, continues the article, we already know from FBI counterintelligence agent Peter Strzok's now infamous text messages with his fellow agent and reported lover, Lisa Page, that Strzok, the man driving that Russia collusion investigation, disdained Donald Trump and expressed willingness to use his law enforcement powers to, quote, stop the Republican from becoming president. The question that lingers unanswered, did those sentiments affect official actions? Now, I think we all know what the answer to that question is. However, there's an article linked here in the John Solomon piece that may lend us a little bit of clarity. I'm sitting cross-legged on my chair, so if you hear noises, that's what it is. Here's the article that's linked at the sentence here that says, did those sentiments affect official actions? And it's a link to this article by the Chicago Tribune that says, Justice Department watchdog says probes ongoing into disclosure of Comey memos, FBI leaks. Now that's interesting. The Justice Department Inspector General said Monday that his office is still probing possible misconduct in the FBI's safeguarding of its own secrets, from how former Director James Comey handled his private memos to whether others under him may have given sensitive details to reporters. Now remember, the question that lingers unanswered, did those sentiments affect official actions? And this is what he's using to kind of source that sentence. And I find it very interesting that he's bringing up the Comey memos in without bringing up the Comey memos. And let's just dig into this just a little bit more, okay? Inspector General Michael Horowitz, revealed the continued investigative work to lawmakers on the Senate Judiciary Committee, which on Monday conducted the first hearing to examine his 500-page report assessing how the FBI handled the high-profile investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was Secretary of State. The report blasted senior FBI officials for having shown a willingness to take official action to hurt Trump's chances of becoming president, though a determined political bias did not ultimately impact the decision not to charge Clinton with a crime. And again, the Democrat and uniparty powers that be will lead you to believe that that IG report wiped any sniff of bias off the face of the map. And we watched them carry their torches and indict in the court of public opinion James Comey for all of his wrongdoing and the things that he's done wrong. Now, we know that that would basically destroy any sort of obstruction challenge that the special counsel could ever have, because all the attorneys need to do now is parrot out the Democrats saying how unlawfully he acted and how against protocol that he acted when he was, when he was handling this mid-year exam investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. I love how you guys are all talking in the chat. It's great. It goes on. Monday's hearing offered lawmakers on each side of the aisle an opportunity to press their long-held talking points about the Clinton email investigation, and similarly charged investigation into whether Trump's campaign coordinated with Russia to influence the 2016 election. So it goes on and on about that, the IG investigation into the mid-year exam and Comey's memos. So Is the Comey's memos part of it tied to this affect official action sentence? And I know it looks like I'm looking into this way too much, but I will promise you that I mean, I really feel like there's something interesting here about linking this article. Peter Strzok's actions are obviously spoken about at length inside of the testimony of Horowitz on the mid-year exam, as well as in the IG report, which I'm still not done with yet. Holy moly. Um, so I just wanted to throw that article out there. It's linked below for you guys. Everything's in order in the description. Memos the FBI is now producing to the Department of Justice, Inspector General, and multiple Senate and House committees offer what sources involved in the production, review, or investigation described to me as damning or troubling evidence. So now the FBI is producing all of this information about what we're talking about here in this John Solomon piece to the IG as well as committees. And the investigation is unearthing these disturbing and damning pieces of evidence about Peter Strzok et al. And what they're doing in terms of the Russiagate investigation that they started supposedly in July of 2016. One of the those memos show Strzok and his counterintelligence team rushing in the fall of 2016 to find derogatory information from informants or a pretext to accelerate the probe and get a surveillance warrant on figures tied to the future president. So I read this sentence a little bit differently, okay? He's using informants, he says here, to find derogatory information about Trump to make the investigation move more quickly and get a some kind of FISA warrant on somebody there so that they can spy on him. They're rushing right before the election to find something that will allow them to get a FISA warrant. I will make the argument that they've been spying this entire time using different methods. I will make the argument that they planted people inside of the campaign. I will make the argument that they manufactured derogatory information that people could grab to present to this investigative team as a basis or back engineering of information. Um, there's so much here. They basically circled around to cause this by actions they took themselves, the Steele dossier, implanting people inside the campaign, having helpers send emails to people trying to entrap them. Felix Sater even sending emails to Michael Cohen, who we'll talk about another day. Sending emails to, Felix Sater saying that Ivanka can come and sit in Putin's chair. Felix Sater saying that will help to get Donald Trump elected. All of the things that were going on from the intelligence community itself into this, all the back engineering, how Steele was connected to Sidney Blumenthal and Cody Shear, and how Steele was connected to Nellie Orr, who was connected. You guys know the story. I feel like this article is stopping just a little bit short of where it could go. I need a mod because people suck. Okay. All gone. Let me get rid of this person. Hold on. Interrupting, really. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. So annoying. Why can't people just be freaking normal human beings? If you don't like what I'm saying, then go. Like, nobody's stopping you. Nobody's keeping you here. You're not chained here, okay? So get out. I know. I need to make some mods, right? I know. I'm so sorry to interrupt this for that jerk. Appreciate all of your support. Okay. Let me do this. My belly. Yeah, forget this noise. I can't do it right now. God, it's so hard. It's scrolling so fast. Okay. Anybody that's listening to this afterwards, it's live. So please forgive me. I don't know. See, I don't know how modding works. Like, I don't know what kind of control people get And I'm like, no offense, I love all of you, but I don't know a lot of you guys. What happens if like somebody is like pretending to be a kind person and then turns into, somebody who takes my channel down or something? I just don't know. I don't know what modding does. Hold on. I know this person. Hold on. Okay. There, we've got a wrench. We've got one wrench. Okay. I'm trusting you. You're the only wrench, so I know if you do something wrong, Keck King, who to come after. Okay? All right. Where were we? Anyway, you guys know all of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, with them implanting weird, like Papadopoulos even. Papadopoulos, for goodness sakes. Papadopoulos saying overt things like, oh, want to set up a meeting with these Russians. The Russians want to meet with you. You understand, okay? Okay. So one of the figures, let me just read this again. They show Strzok and his counterintelligence team rushing in the fall of 2016 to find derogatory information from informants or a pretext to accelerate the probe and get a surveillance warrant on figures tied to the future president. One of those figures was Carter Page, an academic and an energy consultant from New York. He was briefly a volunteer foreign policy advisor for the GOP nominee's campaign and visited Moscow the summer before the election. So they go after Carter Page. Carter Page, who is a former informant for the FBI, working with the FBI, a confidential informant for the FBI on a case that literally just ended in March of 2016, is brought onto the Trump campaign, and he's a target for FISA. The memos show Strzok, Lisa Page, and others in counterintelligence monitored news articles in September 2016 that quoted a law enforcement source as saying the FBI was investigating Carter Page's travel to Moscow. So there's a leak. The FBI team pounced on what it saw as an opportunity as soon as Page wrote a letter to then FBI Director James Comey complaining about the completely false leak. So let's get this straight. Carter Page writes a letter to James Comey about a leak in the media that Carter Page traveled to Moscow. And then Strzok says, quote, at a minimum, the letter provides us a pretext to interview, Strzok wrote to Lisa Page on September 26th, 2016. Isn't it interesting how it seems like these letters, national security, all these letters are like a pretext for action. Like they were just waiting for anything to be able to jump and interview Carter Page, which would then grant them the FISA warrant. So my question is, who leaked? Was the leak an engineered leak like so many of them are? Was the letter that Carter Page wrote, did he write that just because he was pissed? Or here's the article. Carter Page, ex-Trump advisor with Russian ties, visits Moscow. This is the New York Times, December 8th, 2016. But he writes this letter. Dear Director, he talked about this in his testimony in front of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. I'm writing to request the FBI's prompt end of the reported inquiry regarding my personal trip to Russia in July, an investigation which has been widely mentioned in the media. In this regard, I wanted to provide you with a few basic facts that should help underscore what a complete waste of time this witch hunt directed at me is. He goes on and he talks about, why it's bull that they're investigating him. But Peter Strzok and Lisa Page used that as an excuse to interview him and then get a FISA warrant, supposedly, as per Solomon here. Within weeks, that pretext, often a synonym for an excuse, had been upsized to a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant, giving the FBI the ability to use some of its most awesome powers to monitor Carter Page and his activities. Now, this is after he had left the campaign. We know the 2-hop rule. So the letter that Carter Page wrote to James Comey, turned into grew out of a leak to the media about an investigation into his trips to Moscow. So the seed is the leak to the media about Moscow. The water is Carter Page saying, you know, James Comey, this investigation is nonsense and I'm being slandered and it's a witch hunt against me. The sunlight is Peter Strzok saying, we can interview this dude now. And the flower is the FISA warrant. And that means that the two-hop rule is in effect. And this warrant, supposedly, as of this part in the article, is renewed 4 times by lots of different folks inside the Justice Department, including Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein. Anyway. So the next paragraph here in this says, to date, the former Trump advisor has been accused of no wrongdoing, despite being subjected to nearly a year of surveillance. Some internal memos detail the pressure being applied by the FBI to DOJ prosecutors to get the warrant on Carter Page buttoned up before Election Day. Now, 2 FISA warrants had been denied before this. I believe it was 2, maybe 3, but I think it was 2 going off the top of my head. Those warrants were denied. There was talk about this for so long. We were talking about how bad those had to really be, those warrants, the applications for those warrants to get denied by a FISA judge, given the ratio of approvals to denials. Okay. So we already know that it's for FISA judges. And as sort of as per what Rosenstein said in the testimony the other day, it's easy to get a FISA warrant. These things are very, very official. The data that goes into them is very important. It's very sourced. Everything's legitimate. They have to be sworn to, but they were denied for warrants on somebody, we don't know who, before this one was approved. But this one was renewed 4 times. So some internal memos detail the pressure being applied by the FBI to DOJ prosecutors to get the warrant on Carter Page buttoned up before Election Day. In other words, guys, we're going to push you. The FBI is going to push the DOJ responsible for this to rush these FISA applications through so that we can start spying sooner rather than later. In one email exchange with the line Crossfire FISA, Strzok and Page discussed talking points to get then FBI Director Andrew McCabe to persuade a high-ranking DOJ official to sign off on the warrant. Who were they talking about in this paragraph? Who is John talking about? Is he talking about Priest? Who is he talking about? Who? This is before Trump is elected. In one email exchange with the subject line Crossfire FISA, Strzok and Page discussed talking points. Trivia for you guys in the audience. Frankenstein, Rosenstein. Thank you. That's great. Okay. When did Andrew McCabe become deputy director of the FBI? Let's see. When? I'm thinking about this for a reason. When did McCabe become deputy director? Oh my gosh. Thank you, Facts Over Feelings 18. That's amazing. Holy moly. Thank you. Super chat. Wow. It was in September of 2016. Does anyone know? Early 2016? I'm just trying to figure out if that we're jumping timelines here. Yeah, okay. Early 2016. I'm seeing early 2016. Okay, good. All right. So to persuade a high-ranking DOJ official to sign off on the warrant. Quote, Crossfire Hurricane was one of the code names for 4 separate investigations the FBI conducted related to Russia matters in the 2016 election. Hold on. 4 separate investigations the FBI conducted related to Russia matters? 4? 4 separate investigations? How many did you guys know about? I only knew about 1. I only knew about 1. So this is interesting. There are 4 separate investigations going on into Russia matters in the 2016 election at the same time as Crossfire Hurricane. And what are they all focused on? Different things? Could this be some of the reason for could this be some of the reason for the assumptions by many that the Papadopoulos nonsense meeting in a bar with Alexander Downer was the beginning of the Crossfire Hurricane operation? And a lot of people saying that can't be because there was this activity back in April, et cetera, so on and so forth. There, it looks like it started earlier. Could there have been more spying going on another one of these 4 that apparently were going? I mean, think of that bombshell. That's huge. John Solomon just let us know that there were 3 other investigations going on at the same time. By who? Who's doing these? Who's in charge of them? And what are they investigating? So Strzok continues, at a minimum, that keeps the hurry the F up pressure on him. Strzok emailed Page on October 14th, 2016, less than 4 weeks before Election Day. So they're badgering McCabe to hurry it up on the FISA warrants because they need them badly. Still an expedite, one of the emails beckoned as the FBI tried to meet the requirements of a process known as a Woods review before a FISA warrant can be approved by the courts. He links to an article by Cheryl Atkinson, opinion contributor as well to The Hill. Nunez's memo raises questions. Did FBI violate Woods procedures? There are strict rules requiring that each and every fact be presented in an FBI request to electronically spy on a U.S. citizen and needs to be extreme vetted for accuracy and presented to the court only if verified. There's no dispute that at least some, if not a great deal of information in the anti-Trump Steele dossier was unverified or false. This article is bombshell. Bombshell. Somebody in the comments said, Tracy Beans, we know Strzok is the one that interviewed Downer, and I bet that is the 302 McCabe paid $25K to change. Now, I don't know about this $25,000. I've never heard that before. Thank you to everybody who's giving super chats. Inevitably, and I really appreciate, inevitably at the end of this video, people that are catching this as a done video that's processed and everything are going to get mad at me for talking and in the middle and thanking you guys. So I just wanted to let you know that I can see this stuff. I'm thanking you now. I will go back at the end and personally thank each of you for your amazingly generous donations. But people that are listening at home and don't get to play with you guys in the chat here are going to get angry. So thank you, Squid. Thank you, everybody. So basically, where were we? Okay. So the FISA applications have to go through this Woods review to make sure that everything is on the up and everything is square. And notice how he writes this. As the FBI tried to meet the requirements of a process known as a Woods review before it can be approved, which makes me think there were several go-rounds. Any idea what time you can have it Woods did by? Strzok asked Page. I know it's not going to matter because DOJ is going to take the time DOJ wants to take. I just don't want this waiting on us at all. In other words, let's do everything that we can to keep this going. Ultimately, it's in the DOJ's hands, but we need to do everything that we can to get this going, okay? Until all the interviews are completed by Congress and DOJ's Inspector General later this year, we won't know why counterintelligence agents who normally take a methodical approach to investigation felt so much pressure days before the election on this case. In other words, they were scrambling to get this stuff done before the election. They didn't scramble very much to get the laptop information from Weiner's laptop over to the Department of Justice in the right way. As a matter of fact, they sat on that information. They sat on that. They didn't want anybody to see that stuff. Let's just sit on this until we can't sit on it anymore. Let's do everything that we can to Make sure that those notes those diligent investigators in New York took are never seen by anybody except when they come out later on in an inspector general's report as a little tidbit or hint for us. The agents got here's a question. This is like where the opinion part of this piece comes in here. Were they concerned about losing a chance to gather evidence at a critical moment? Or maybe, as some Republicans long have suspected, they wanted to impact the election? The agents got the Carter Page warrant in October, and within 2 weeks, Democrats in Congress, such as then Senator Harry Reid and some media members, were raising questions about the FBI withholding word of a probe that could hurt Trump. FBI agents monitored those reports too. Now, the argument from the Democrats is that these agents and the FBI as a whole is keeping this Trump Russia investigation under wraps, when if people knew about this investigation, which would completely break protocol, which would be against all rules and regulations, which would be the thing that they're so pissed off about Comey doing with the mid-year exam, they want him to do that for Trump. But of course, if he does it for Clinton, that's a big deal. So the Clinton thing was just a complete anomaly. And Horowitz in his testimony even was very clear to bring up several times. It wasn't only the mid-year exam. Yes, Comey talked about the mid-year exam, but he also didn't talk about the Clinton Foundation investigation that was ongoing at the time. So Horowitz made sure to point out there to the Democrats every time they were trying to say, you guys did this in favor of Trump so that Trump would win, making the argument that somehow the FBI has a bunch of people working inside of it that were pro-Trump at the time. Exactly. I'm reading the comments. I'm getting there. So basically, they're saying Comey should have leaked this out so that people knew that Trump was under investigation for Trump-Russia collusion and working with the Russians to get elected, and they would never have elected him president. Well, they couldn't do that because this entire investigation was engineered by them as their insurance policy and or stop. It was completely predicated on absolutely nothing. It was predicated on rumors and innuendo that were fabricated not only by people inside of the country, but all over the world in Five Eyes, everywhere, in order to try to stop this man from becoming president. So, of course, they're not going to leak the existence of it because then there'd be too much attention on it. They still needed to do what they needed to do. So, one more thing before we move on to the next paragraph in this article. The agents got the Carter Page warrant in October, and within 2 weeks, Democrats in Congress, such as Harry Reid, were raising questions. Harry Reid was the one who wrote the memo to James Comey at the direction of the CIA in order to take the investigation from what was a CIA fronted investigation, aka maybe that's where Halper came from, right? And move it to an FBI investigation. Harry Reid was the author of those letters. Harry Reid was the author of those letters. Interesting. So, the day after Trump's surprising win on November 9th, 2016, the FBI counterintelligence team engaged in a new mission, bluntly described in another string of emails prompted by another news leak. I don't know. I wasn't really surprised when he won. Just saying. But the FBI team starts their back engineer, their cover up, right? I'm going to answer this question at the end. The Q question. We need all of their names to scrub, and we should give them ours for the same purpose. Strzok emailed Page on November 10th, 2016, citing a Daily Beast article about some of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's alleged unsavory ties overseas. Now, this is a big one, okay? We need all of their names to scrub, and we should give them ours for the same purpose. Strzok emailed Page on November 10th, citing a Daily Beast article about some of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's alleged unsavory ties overseas. Why are they scrubbing anything in connection with Paul Manafort? Scrubbing to me in the context of this appears as though what he's saying is Strzok is saying to Page, we need to get rid of all the evidence that links us to these people and get rid of all the evidence that links those people to other people. That way nobody knows what we've been doing. Paul Manafort is a central figure in Mueller's probe for his ties to the Ukraine. The Daily Beast article here says, I feel like he linked to the wrong article. I really feel like it. It talks about when Manafort resigned from the Trump campaign. It talks about Kellyanne Conway. It talks about how much of a crazy, nutso sort of a thing it was with him leaving. It talks about his brief tenure. And then here, minutes after the New York Times published a story detailing some of Manafort's Ukraine dealings on the 14th of August, Lewandowski tweeted it with the headline, Secret Ledger in Ukraine lists cash for Donald Trump's campaign chief. Meaning they knew about it. Meaning, why is it so important for Strzok to make sure that names are scrubbed? He wants to go back and cover his tracks surrounding Manafort, who I've said is a plant inside the campaign from day one. Andy didn't get any other page rollback, apparently indicating McCabe didn't have names to add to the, quote, scrub. That's what Bill said, Bill Priestap. Stroke wrote back, apparently referring to then FBI Chief of Counterintelligence William Priestap. I suggest we need to change our entire lists as we each have potential derogatory CI info, the other doesn't. Now, some may argue that he's talking about the same derogatory information that they were supposedly tasked with getting about Trump team members above. But I don't think that that's what they're talking about here. I think what they're talking about here is their plants, their confidential informants, information that ties all together in this web. How many were there? 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 3? How many? How many? They're trying to cover their tracks after Trump wins. One more bombshell in this amazing article. It's an extraordinary exchange, if for no other reason than this. The very day after Trump wins the presidency. Here, hold on. Mr. McCabe became deputy director on February 1st, 2016. Thank you, Trump movement, too. I appreciate it. So deputy director on February 1st, 2016. Thank you so much for finding that. I'm sorry I didn't see it. It's an extraordinary exchange, if for no other reason than this. The very day after Trump wins the presidency, some top FBI officials are involved in the sort of gumshoeing normally reserved for field agents, and their goal is to find derogatory information about someone who had worked for the president-elect. No, I think they're involved in the sort of gumshoeing it takes when nobody outside of your group knows what you've done wrong and you need to cover your ass. That's what I think. Just my opinion. I think they had to take on the roles of what other grunt people would do because nobody else knew that they do it except this high group, this high level group, this secret group of 7th floor, the secret group. That's what I think. As the president-elect geared up to take over, the FBI made another move. Now listen very carefully to this. Another move that has captured investigators' attention. This FISA report is going to be insane. It named an executive with expertise in the FBI's most sensitive surveillance equipment to be a liaison to the Trump transition. On its face, that seems odd. Technical surveillance nerds aren't normally the first picks for plum political assignments. Even odder, the FBI counterintelligence team running the Russia-Trump collusion probe seemed to have an interest in the appointment. What he's basically telling you without saying it in there is they had another person there. What it appears that he's doing, the guy from the surveillance equipment team that is a liaison to a newly minted Trump presidency, is continue to bug them. So when Admiral Rogers makes his appearance at Trump Tower and they scurry off to Bedminster, New Jersey the next day, it makes sense to me that all of a sudden he knows about this. They're basically, John Solomon is basically saying, it appears to me anyway, that John Solomon is specifically saying here that they picked someone very close to the Crossfire Hurricane team who's running this ongoing counterintelligence investigation to work with the transition team. I wonder who they were told he was, because I doubt it. I doubt that it was told to them what his actual position was. Hey, here, by the way, here's someone who specializes in surveillance equipment. He's going to help you in the transition. Meanwhile, he's being investigated for Russian collusion by this Crossfire Hurricane team. Clear evidence also exists that an investigation into still unproven collusion between a foreign power and a U.S. presidential candidate was driven less by secret information from Moscow and more by politically tainted media leaks. And that means the dots between expressions of political bias and official actions just got a lot more connected, or a little more connected. John Solomon, you blew me away with this. I mean, this is massive. And it just leads me back to where he's getting his information from. I think that there's a very specific set of people working with John Solomon, only because of what we pointed out in the past. So this article is killer. You need to read it and understand there is so much buried in here, even things that aren't spelled out that are in here that we just talked about. And there's probably more that I was so excited about this. I wanted to come on live and do this for you guys. I have a lot more things to talk about if you guys want to hang around. It's up to you. How long have I been going for? I'm like blathering on how long have I been going for? I don't know. I don't know how long I've been going for, but do you guys want me to keep going with some of the news I have lined up here for you today? I'll wait for a yes. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. I woke up saying there's nothing really going on today. And I went, by the time I did my podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. Here, you guys rock. You all rock. Okay. I want to talk about this real quick. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo left for North Korea for denuclearization talks and brought two gifts for Kim Jong-un. One is a letter from Trump, and the other is an Elton John CD with his song Rocket Man. Rocket Man. One diplomatic source in Washington said the Rocket Man CD was the subject of a discussion during Trump's lunch with Kim. Kim mentioned that Trump referred to him as Rocket Man when tensions ran high last year after a series of tests, and then Trump asked Kim if he knew the song, and Kim said no. I think that's awesome that Pompeo is traveling to North Korea with a Rocket Man CD. If he's going to North Korea, is he going? Yeah, he's going to North Korea. He's bringing Rocket Man with him. Rocket Man is traveling the globe. Okay. Here's another interesting one. Now, a lot of people think that just because, for the most part, it's true, but just because Trump appoints somebody doesn't always mean that they're necessarily the best. This is an interesting one here. Trump trade advisor Navarro reportedly floated suspected FBI informant for an administration job. Peter Navarro, one of President Donald Trump's top trade advisors, recommended a man identified by some news outlets as an FBI informant for a top administration job, says Axios. Fudge rule is in effect, guys. If you don't know, the fudge rule is that within 24 hours of any news release, you wait and see, because the chances are it will be completely changed. But this is from May. It's just very interesting, especially given what we're learning from Solomon today. Navarro floated Stefan Halper's name for unidentified ambassadorships in Asia. Navarro is a harsh critic of China, knew Halper, who was an academic with the focus on China. So how many I always wonder to myself, like, he cleaned house, right? He cleaned house. Um, how many people do you think that are close to the president are now still there, like, from before? Not many. Not many. Here. This is about Peter Strzok. It's a CNN piece. Strzok may not comply with House subpoena. Embattled FBI agent Peter Strzok may not comply with the House Judiciary Committee subpoena requiring that he appear for a second round of questioning early next week. Um, basically, what his attorney is saying is, because we have come to the conclusion or have been forced to come to the conclusion that this is not a search for truth, it's a chance for Republican members of the House to preen and posture before their most radical conspiracy-minded constituents. Just the blatant, disgusting, virtue signaling, holier than thou tone of his attorney's statement. This man, Peter Strzok, treason doesn't even begin to explain what he's done in his own words. In his own words. Not even like we're making this stuff up. This is thing that he said that we're talking about. And the Democrats nearly blew a gasket during the Rod Rosenstein hearing the other day when they started sort of leaking what Peter Strzok did and didn't say. And they started trying to interrupt because it was a closed hearing. Some of it was classified, some of it wasn't. There was an FBI attorney with Peter Strzok there because I'm nearly certain he's not fired yet. So he had an FBI attorney with him who was advising him on what he couldn't say and what he could say. And so Rod Rosenstein was like being badgered by the people that actually give a crap about the truth, Gates, Jordan, etc., about why he was allowed to have an FBI attorney there who was telling him not to answer certain questions. Like, in other words, it seems like they're protecting themselves. Rosenstein says, we're not withholding things because they're damaging. We promise we'll get them to you. And they all say in Congress, I think that you're talking out your butt and you're trying to protect your organization. Now he's saying basically that he's not sure if he's going to be appearing on the second subpoena in front of Congress, indicted personally, because I'm just waiting for this FISA report to come out. I really want to see some action on the McCabe charges. It's getting a little tiresome waiting for all this stuff to happen. It happened in the right time, but I think we all need to see something. Which brings me to Jordan, and this is the last story I'm going to cover today. Jordan, this story is just absolutely ridiculous, okay? Jim Jordan went after Rosenstein in a very, very overt and sort of, I use that word a lot lately, a very powerful way. And they had that exchange. It was very terse, where basically Rosenstein was saying, or he was saying basically, oh, thanks for letting me know this isn't personal. And Jim Jordan was saying, well, it's not personal. And you basically threatened members of our staff with subpoenas and that whole noise. You guys are, what happened there. All of a sudden now we start getting these stories about Jim Jordan from when he was a wrestling coach back in, can you guys still hear me? Just waiting. I heard a weird noise. Did I lose you? Okay. We get this stuff about when he was a wrestling coach in the 90s, early 90s at Ohio State University. So this is it in a nutshell. Apparently, there were some people that were allegedly abused by somebody there at the school, the doctor there. And he supposedly abused these wrestlers. This is college now, mind you. The former wrestlers, the two of them that are causing this whole big mess, say that Jim Jordan knew about this abuse and he covered it up. And I have to say, the Daily Caller is quickly becoming one of my favorite places to go. It was these people that are suing or that are going after, working with Perkins Coie to go after Jim Jordan strategically now, all of a sudden, after all of these years that he's been in Congress, 10 years. Yes, after the doctor commits suicide, all of a sudden, Ohio State University and Perkins Coie decide to rehash all of this to see if Jim Jordan knew about abuse. Now, mind you, they're not accusing him of abuse. They're saying he knew about abuse and he didn't tell anyone. But these two people, Jordan in the past on their Twitter accounts, all kinds of stuff. They say they reached out to Jim Jordan, but they emailed him on the wrong address. They've been in jail for fraud. Look, Yates served prison time for a $1.8 million fraud scheme. DeSabato is facing a defamation lawsuit. These people are, do you ever notice they can never find anybody to be witnesses for them with any credibility? Like, it's always like those people from, like, the Roy Moore case, for example, right? I knew it. Hold on. Is it better now, guys? Excuse the silence. I don't know if my microphone is better. I'm sounding tinny. Nothing changed. I didn't do anything. I heard that noise, and then all of a sudden I started having audio problems. Anyway, so basically what's going on here is they're going after Jim Jordan with people who have no credibility whatsoever to try and take him down. And I really hope that this falls flat on its face. Perkins Coie really needs to cut it out. I mean, they're involved in every nasty, backhanded Democrat scheme known to man. So I linked these in the description box below. I want you guys to read the articles. Chuck Ross is doing these. He's great. I follow him on Twitter. To me, it feels like it's no coincidence that this stuff has been talked about. This stuff has been talked about after this whole RR interaction that Jim Jordan and him had, and all the terseness and like tension that's gone on between the two of them. Not a lot of people are making the Speaker of the House connection, but not the Rod Rosenstein one. And I just feel like it's really weird. And I don't like, I have a problem with Rod. I don't like him. I never have. I feel like he's got a mutually beneficial thing going on right now. I don't know. Maybe he'll turn out to be a hero. A lot of people think that he is. Just my opinion, again. Let's talk quickly about Kim.com before I move on to the question that I'm going to answer for you guys about. Let's see. Oh, this was another one I wanted to talk about quick. We'll go on to Kim.com in a second. Devin Nunes refers Clinton ally Sidney Blumenthal, others tied to Trump dossier for testimony. He has a list now like 60 miles long. I'm going to show you. Here it is. Jeff at the Markets Work did this blog. The Nunes list, 42 names referred and growing. On July 5th, Devin Nunes sent a third referral letter to Chairman Gowdy and Chairman Goodlatte. A brief description of each individual is provided. Nunes has now referred 42 individuals to the Joint Task Force of Committees on Oversight and Government Reform for open setting interviews. The names referred by Nunes are thus far loosely grouped into three categories. And mind you, this is within the past week and a half or so, okay? Something happened to spur this. The names referred are grouped into DOJ and FBI officials, State Department officials, and some Obama and Clinton officials, non-government individuals, many related to Fusion GPS. All names appear to be tied and related to the Steele dossier. And note, the names cut off at a certain political level. Below Sally Yates at DOJ, below Comey at FBI, below Kerry at State. There are many interrelations, and the list being compiled by Nunes is beginning to encompass many of the significant middle-tier players in the Steele dossier. Most of these individuals were intimately involved in the formation, use, and/or dissemination of the Steele dossier, which led to the October FISA warrant on Carter Page. There are many interrelations. Bruce Orr and Nellie Orr are married. Bruce was a senior DOJ official. Nellie worked at Fusion GPS. Murray and King are married. Murray was an assistant to Obama and senior advisor for strategic communications. King works at Fusion GPS. If you guys don't know the Marcus Work blog that he's got going on here, check out Jeff at the Marcus Work. He does some great work. Glenn Simpson and Mary Jacoby. Simpson is the founder of Fusion GPS, and Jacoby visited the White House the day after Mike Rogers shut down FISA access for contractors. What a coincidence. Most of the individuals had direct contact with many others on the list, and all are tied to the Steele dossier in some fashion. Note what's missing. Higher level names like Rice, Power, Yates, Lynch, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, insert your choice. Christopher Steele, which has already been referred by Grassley. Mike Gaeta received permission from Newland to meet with Steele in London. David Kramer, we did a big video on David Kramer. He flew at the direction of John McCain to London. I think I'm going to talk to Jeff because David Kramer testified already. Adam Waldman is missing, DC lawyer, lobbyist, and registered foreign agent for Deripaska, and Lavrov. Veselnitskaya already testified in front of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And Sergey Milian, who was source D in the dossier. Papadopoulos and Page are both omitted as well, but I think that these people, Papadopoulos is not sentenced yet, so he wouldn't be able to testify. Carter Page testified in front of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence already. So there's a lot of good information in here. Wow, this is a great article. Definitely check this out. I'll add it to the description. It's not in there yet. And also check me out on Twitter because I tweet all day long. Crazy woman with her thumbs on fire. And that's it. That's it for today. I think a lot. I'm still working on the pieces I talked about in my last video. Maybe I will ask if before I go, you guys have any questions that I can quickly answer. You guys, yeah, like the video. Thank you very much for everybody. I hope this was good. If you're listening to this, please understand that I was live during this, and so many people are so kind to me. And oh, the Q question. Yes. Okay. So let's just get this out of the way once and for all right? Because I'm so sick of this nonsense. I've never said anything in regards to what I think about Q being real or fake, or that I didn't agree with it, or I did agree with it, or I've never, like somebody asked me the question earlier in this about Q and asked me if I was still against Q. I've never been against Q ever. So I don't even know where some of these rumors come from. It's really ridiculous. I just wish that people would stop putting words in my mouth that don't exist. And at least, I know there's a rumor mill out there that just consistently spins. And there's been several targeted campaigns to try and tarnish me for doing things that I never did. And I just appreciate everyone who has kept a level head about this and understood that, a lot of this stuff is not done for any other reason but then to divide us. And that is the antithesis of the direction that we need to be in moving forward. So I don't partake. I try not to partake in any of that stuff. I try not to give it any attention, but I also don't appreciate when people say that I've said things that I've never said. So that should take care of that question. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please, 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 please consider supporting me on Patreon. You can find me at patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. My PayPal address is in the description box below. I think I like doing these live shows. I really think that I like this. This was fun. So maybe I'll do some more of these. And thanks for your support. You guys are freaking fantastic. We're doing awesome together. And I'm going to put out a video on Capcom later on. He was going to fight extradition, but he lost. So that big there, and I'm doing a video on that later, which is why I'm not talking about it. Um, Thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate all guys. Have a fantastic weekend. I can't see you soon. Much love.